Welcome to the Writing in Your Jammies podcast. I'm your host, Jeannie Hall, and this podcast is all about our individual spiritual journeys. I discuss a mix of personal development, personal growth, psychology, and spirituality to help you live the life of your dreams. Let's transform our lives together. Join me. Hello and welcome to the Writing in Your Jammies podcast. This is episode 54, Harry Potter Life Lessons. So anyone who knows me personally knows that I have a background in teaching and literature, and I'm a big English and reading nerd. Of course, I'm a writing nerd too because I love to write. And the reason I got into writing was because of JK Rowling's Harry Potter series. And I've shared that story, I believe, on past podcasts, so I won't go into it here. But I was inspired, I should say, to share this particular podcast because Harry Potter hasn't just been an influence in my life as far as being a writer and just loving great stories and reading. Harry Potter as a character is such an influential part of our society now. It's kind of become this global phenomenon, and it did when the books were first coming out, and then as each movie came out, and now the series has been completed, and there's been plays and another book and all sorts of different charitable things. And I respect Jo Rowling so much as an author and as a woman and as a leader and as an inspirer to millions of people. And because of that, I was inspired to kind of use Harry Potter as a character and his journey as kind of a spiritual guide as to what can happen in our journeys too. So I hope you like this podcast. So I'm going to pose a supposition, and the supposition is that we are all like Harry Potter. No, listen now. Hear me out. For those of you who have been living under a rock and haven't heard of this very famous character, Harry Potter is the protagonist of both the Harry Potter books by JK Rowling and the series of movies by the same name. Harry is a gawky young boy when we meet him. He has black hair, round glasses, a scar on his forehead in the shape of a lightning bolt, and a pretty low opinion of himself. He hasn't had a great life up to this point. He lives with his nasty aunt and uncle who are verbally abusive to him, and his equally nasty cousin of the same age who is physically abusive to him. But the thing about Harry, spoiler alert, is that he is a wizard. He has all this potential and power, and he has no idea of any of that during his childhood years. The reason he lives with his aunt and his uncle is because his parents were killed when he was just a baby. He discovers the truth of all of this on his 11th birthday. So go ahead and ask, Jeannie, how are we all like Harry Potter? We're not wizards. Maybe not, though I've always kind of wanted to be. But we do all have power and potential, just like Harry. Even though Harry's relatives kept the truth from him, telling him his parents had died in a car crash and never telling him of his magical origins, he had had signs and indications of his potential abilities along the way. So growing up, he kept having these weird things happen to him that he didn't know how to explain. So Harry has had weird things happen to him, like making the glass on a cage in the zoo that had a snake inside accidentally disappear. So we don't have those kinds of signs and powers like he did. But we do have our own signs of our own true potential too. Many of us are taught certain things that stifle our creativity and limit our beliefs growing up. Many of us believe we must conform to societal norms to fit in. If you grew up poor, for example, chances are higher that you will become a poor adult. If you grew up the child of divorce, the chances that all your romantic relationships have always been happy and blissful isn't 100%. If you were taught that you were born into sin and have to fight against the evil inside of you all the time, it's doubtful that you automatically started living a peaceful and content existence once you grew up. If you were berated and bullied a lot as a kid, you may have self-confidence issues now. If you were taught that job security is absolutely essential to your sense of well-being, you may work for a large corporation or have a government job right now, even if that job doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled and happy. We are all raised with certain belief systems. These systems come from our families, our schools, our friends, our churches, our society. Much of the time, these are beliefs that those people who care about us were taught themselves. And a lot of the times, they pass those beliefs on to us with the best of intentions. They're trying to help us, not hurt us. Harry Potter, on the other hand, was taught that he was a normal, quote-unquote, boy because his aunt and uncle were afraid of his magical abilities. They were afraid of his potential. They were afraid of the power he was capable of wielding. And Harry believed them. He'd never seen wizards before growing up. Even when he first meets a wizard and sees what he can do, Harry has a hard time believing what he's seeing at first. And we're much the same. When we embark on our spiritual journeys and we discover that we're not just meatbags walking around, many of us have a difficult time believing that. We've been taught our whole lives that we're just these flawed and possibly sinful humans. And we are flawed. But that doesn't also mean that we're not perfectly beautiful and powerful spiritual beings at the same time. That doesn't mean we haven't witnessed a few clues and feelings that hint we may be more than just skin, bone, and sinew. Think about a time when you felt perfectly peaceful or blissful. What were your circumstances at that time? Were you on vacation? Did you have a wonderful time with someone or with several someones? Were you in nature at the time? Were you by yourself? Was music involved? A certain smell? Were you doing something for the very first time? I personally remember the first time I went to a state fair with the man who would become my husband. And I'd been to that same state fair every year of my life for as long as I could remember. But going with him was a totally different and much more exhilarating experience. We were smiling, laughing, or kissing the whole time as we rode all the rides and tried to pop balloons with darts and eat cotton candy. Okay, not all the rides, I'm chicken. But a lot of the rides. And it's one of my favorite early memories of us together. Back then, we were teenagers, and we were in the very first stages of this long-abiding and beautiful lifetime relationship. We had realized how much potential we had together as a couple, even then, even at that young age, and how much power we had to either make or break each other's hearts. And fortunately, we both took that responsibility very seriously even then, and our marriage has been blissfully happy. And that power and potential exists in every aspect of our lives, whether it's in our romantic relationships, our work relationships, our friendships, whether it's in our jobs or our careers and our potential there, whether it's in our ability to be successful and prosperous, whether it's in our ability to create in general, whether it's in our potential to follow our dreams. Once we realize our full power and potential, It is then up to us to act on it. Harry Potter embraced his newfound abilities in the story with both hands. He became a focal point for other magical folks, an inspiration to them, first as a baby that survived a vicious attack that would have killed anybody else and already had, and then later in the story. Although the truth of what he really was had been hidden from him, upon learning who he was, Harry begins to slowly transform into one of the most powerful and influential wizards in the world. Over the course of 7 years, Harry went from a scrawny 11-year-old boy, picked on mercilessly by his Muggle family, which means non-magical for those of you who aren't huge Harry Potter fans like I am, to a grown man capable of saving everyone from evil. Now, was that transformation easy or quick? No. Was it horribly difficult and dangerous at times? Yes. Did Harry doubt himself and his abilities along the way? Many times. But the reason the character of Harry Potter is such an inspiration is because no matter what he faced and no matter how bad it got, he never gave up. Even when facing torture, even when facing the loss of his loved ones, even with tears running down his face, even when facing his own death at the ripe old age of 17. Harry kept going. And here's another spoiler. Stop listening if you don't want to know how his story ends. Okay, I waited long enough. Harry won. Harry defeated his fear, his tragic past, and every odd on earth that was against him. He won. And we can win too. Yes, Harry Potter is a fictional character, but people defeat adversity all the time. We will face challenges. We will face fear and sorrow. We will face things that we may not be sure we can actually survive. But everything is a choice. Harry Potter made his choices, and we make our choices. Harry chose what was right rather than what was easy, and so can we. So now I'm just going to share a few quotes from the story that were very powerful and spoke to me. I love these quotes so much. And again, they relate back to our own spiritual journeys and who we are as human beings and spiritual beings. And this one was by the character of Sirius Black, who is Harry's godfather in the story. We've all got both light and dark inside of us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. That's who we really are. Here's another one which I find really interesting because so much of our lives as human beings is about what we can see and what we can sense with our 5 senses. So a lot of people believe if they can't see it or smell it or touch it or hear it or taste it, it doesn't actually exist. There's a whole bunch of people that go through their entire lives with that belief. But I don't believe that way. I believe there's a whole bunch of other stuff out there, much more powerful stuff out there that we can't use our 5 senses to see. But it is still there, and we still can sense it if we're willing to be attuned to it. So this is the quote. "Of course it is happening inside your head, Harry. But why on earth should that mean that it is not real?" And that quote is from Albus Dumbledore, who was Harry's headmaster at school and basically became his mentor. But I love that the power of your own mind is such that it can create your reality, and in fact does, minute by minute, create your own reality. I find that very interesting that JK Rowling wrote that into her story. Makes me wonder what her spiritual beliefs are. Very interesting. Another quote from Albus Dumbledore. It matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be. And again, it comes back to our choices. We can be born into nothing. We can be born into the worst possible situation and still succeed. And some people who are born into the best possible situations don't do much with it. It's all a choice. It's all up to us. This is another one that I love, and this one is from Ginny Weasley, who is a character who actually Harry eventually, at the very end of the story, ends up marrying and having kids with. So this is his love interest later on in the story as he grows up. But this is what she says. Anything is possible if you've got enough nerve. I love that one too. How much can we do when we put our fear behind us and step forward anyway and go for it? So much is possible when you're willing to do that. Two more. This one again is Albus Dumbledore. It is our choices that show us what we truly are, far more than our abilities. And this one just reminds me of like the handicapped people who perform in the Olympics and do wonderfully well. It's always amazing to me to see people who are in wheelchairs or who are missing limbs or are incapacitated in some other way, who go on and they compete as full-on athletes, when a lot of us who have all of our limbs and have every possible good thing in our bodies, we don't always take advantage of that. And some people who don't have it do it anyway. So it just goes to show any of us can do anything. It's a choice. And we don't have to be limited. We are unlimited beings. And if we really choose that, we can really live a full and amazing life. And the last quote. We must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy. And in the story, Harry always chooses, or at least most of the time, when it's really important, when it really counts. I mean, he's a human and he messes up like any of us, which makes the story that much more compelling. He's so real as a character. But I love that when it really comes down to it, when it's really important, he always makes the decision to do what's right instead of what's easy. And it's kind of like that concept of quitting ahead of time and not going through with something because you might fail. So you just fail ahead of time. Sometimes you got to be a little bit brave to really see that success. If you really want to prosper in this life, you really want to feel the highest emotions and feel the best and be proud of yourself, all those types of things, be accomplished, feel what it feels like to achieve your goal and achieve your dreams. Sometimes you have to be a little brave and put your fear and your doubts aside, and I know that's hard. I definitely do. But when we can do that, what we can succeed can blow our damn minds. So just remember that. So I'm going to leave it there. If you have comments to make, I'd love to hear them. And I hope you have a magical day, week, month, and year. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Writing in Your Jammies podcast. I appreciate every download and every person who has subscribed. I release new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday, so if you enjoy this content, please consider leaving a review. Have a topic you'd like me to discuss or want to appear on this podcast? Contact me anytime at jeannie@writinginyourjammies.com. Thanks again for listening.